Hey everyone, I'm Billy Hill, and today I'm going to tell the story about working on Rockin' in the Free World with Neil Young when I was just a pup. And the big point of the story is Neil took my boots, which we're going to look at because I recorded this story yesterday and my mic evidently just decided it didn't work anymore. So I did the whole thing and realized I didn't have anything to upload. And after telling the story, and let me tell you where this came from, I completely forgot I did this. I went to Hollywood in like 1988-ish, 88, 89. I'd gone to Baylor University and worked on a movie. And I decided that making movies was perfect for me because I could dress the way I wanted, I could cuss and be creative. And I thought, how many jobs are there like this? So I took $1,000, loaded everything I owned in my Mercury Capri, and drove to Hollywood. Because don't ever do that. It's lucky I made it out of there alive. I think I was there 8 years. And it took me a while to actually get a job working on any movie set. I told my daughter just to come clean. I didn't go to Hollywood and just start working on movies. I had to clean carpets for a few months to make money to pay rent in my studio apartment, which no one seemed to appreciate. I had so little money that to eat, to have enough money to pay the rent and eat in Hollywood, I stole all these coupons from the community mailboxes in the courtyard for Popeye's chicken. For $1.14, you could get a wing, a potato wedge, and a biscuit. And I ate that once a day. That was it. That's all I had for the day. Every day for a month. And then I knew I could pay the rent at the end of the month. And I also had a pull-up bar. So I ate that, did pull-ups 3 times a day with leg lifts. And at the end of that month, I had a 6-pack, which I've never had before or after. And so if you're looking for a way to be young and have a 6-pack, that's your recipe right there. It actually worked. I went back to eating normally after that because I actually started getting work. So that brings us to how I got this job. I had a friend of mine from Baylor named Kirk, and he says, man, I got a gig. I was in this office, and they needed this guy to wear an overcoat, and they wanted little micro TVs, which at the time, I was like, a micro TV? It wasn't normal, right? And he said they all wanted them to broadcast this thing, and they wanted to battery power it so he could walk around with these TVs. And he said he could do it. And they said, well, then you're hired. And so they paid him the PA rate, which back then the PA rate was $100. And he was going to go on this shoot, and it turned out it was Neil Young. And the song was Rockin' in the Free World, which no one had ever heard of. It was brand new. And he's like, I think I can get you on for the night shoot. I'm like, heck yeah, because I need to eat more than chicken and a biscuit. And I took the job. He got me on. And so he went out and they shot this scene. It's not a scene, but they went out and shot Neil dressed as a homeless guy, and he's pushing a shopping cart. And I think the theory with the shopping cart was that it could also carry batteries for all the TVs that Kirk was putting together. So I actually, after telling the story, I went out and rounded up some images so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is Neil in Hollywood, and this was his get-up for walking around town. So Kirk was with this little crew, I'm sure it wasn't a very big crew, that was following him around, and they said they kept the camera at times off of him in a way, and people thought he was a homeless guy, treated him like a homeless guy. I'm sure there's more stories about what happened that day than what I know now, because so much time has passed. But this is Neil wandering around getting B-roll footage for the Rockin' in the Free World video. And then the other thing that I'll show you is what they hired Kirk for, and that was all these cameras strapped to his jacket. And I'm sure they're broadcasting something of significance, but you can't tell in the video. The video is just completely grainy and not in focus at all. So let's talk about that. So then it's time for me to go on the set for Rockin' in the Free World Am I going to see Neil Young? Let's talk about this for a second. My daughter, who is now in the music business, or she's getting her degree for sound engineering. She works in a studio. I brought up that I work with Rick Rubin on something, and she was like, hit pause and stopped looking at Instagram and stopped to say, what are you talking about? How do I not know about this? That's why I'm starting to tell these stories, I think, so that years from now, some of this might matter. I don't know. And so... Oh, heck, I lost my thought here. Oh, yeah, no, I got it. She's like, Rick Rubin, what was he like? What did you talk about? Listen, when you're in Hollywood, back in the 90s anyway, when the gangs were roaming and death was imminent, but if you're on a set, I worked with Madonna on Rain, the Rain video. And people were like, what's Madonna like? I worked with Warren Zevon. What's he like? When you're on a set with these guys, you're not talking to them. They're way beyond that. They're living in a crazy glass house on the top of a mountain. Even if you're there, which I was, like Bruce Springsteen said something to me on a set. He said, nice pistol, because I had a 44 Magnum. It was a 57 channels and there's nothing on was the name of that video. So maybe you'll get an interaction like that, but you certainly are not having like long conversations with highly famous people. And I was around Neil Young, which we'll be getting to, which resulted in not a good thing for me and these people, but you're not hanging out with them. In fact, with that said, I have a Madonna story, which almost got a lot more interesting. It's a story I don't often tell, except when my kids were younger, because it's not appropriate. But I do think I could tell a YouTube appropriate Madonna story. It's got some cool players in it, people that I didn't know who they were at the time. Otherwise, it would have ended differently, and then I probably couldn't tell the story. So anyway, I'll do that one next probably. Back. So it's nighttime shoot. They're the worst, but we're young. We could do it. I was like 23 or something. And I'm wearing this hat for a reason. I actually had this hat on the set. So I want you to imagine where we're at. We're in a junkyard, and it's not like a trash heap junkyard. This is like a metal junkyard, not just cars either. I'm talking gigantic pieces of scrap. Like if you had a boat, a thing in the ocean where boats came and they scrapped giant freighters. It was that kind of stuff with giant magnets in the ground. So I'd worked on a video with Kurt Cobain, and we did the whole. The floor was made out of wood chunks, right? So you're just looking for texture. It's all about texture and lighting and all that stuff. But the ground in this place, it wasn't art directed. It was for real. It was black, sooty metal. That imagine you took black metal and just pounded it 1,000 times. Over and over, all over the lot, however big this place was. And I got a picture, we can look at it. And it was that. It was crazy. It was like what hell would look like, you know? And they're like, all right, we're going to be here all night long. So let's go look at that while I'm talking about it. We will have to scroll through some pictures here. I'm giving it away, sorry. So this is just a kind of a faraway shot. So they're utilizing what you're seeing here are heaps of metal and heaps of metal. And then this area here is the black stuff I'm talking about, everything on the ground. Now, the story I'm about to tell, I'm right over here in a scissor lift, in a cherry picker, actually, not a scissor lift. And we can talk about the differences in that. So they say, okay, you're going to be in this cherry picker. Now, a scissor lift, maybe you've seen, it's got this, and then there's a little area. You could like set up a picnic on it, and it goes up. Very stable, super stable, more stable than a cherry picker. A cherry picker has 4 wheels. You can sort of drive it around, and then it's got this arm that goes out, and up. And then at the top is a little basket. In the bottom of the basket is not a floor. It's serrated metal like this with large gaps, and it's made so that you don't slip on it. And I guess that mud and water will fall through the floor. It's not a comfortable thing to stand on. And I'm wearing this hat and my cowboy boots. Now, before this, you were just looking at the stage there. I have no idea. I wasn't a rigger. There's no reason I should have been in that rigging, but I was in the rigging at some point before the video started doing something that someone told me to do. And they have gang boxes. They're like this big, and you plug lights into them. And they're made out of metal. They're super heavy. And somebody on another rig, and I was high enough up that if I fell, I don't know if it'd kill me, but I probably would have walked funny today. Somebody had unplugged all the plugs except for the main power part of the gang box and let it go. And I look up and I see this gang box swinging at my head. And it was fast, but my brain said, you're going to be knocked. There's nothing holding me on. No one's like clipping me in. I'm just holding on to, the railing. And so this thing, right as it comes to hit me in the head, I was wearing this hat. I dipped my head down and it hit me in the hat. Now this hat was, it wasn't as old as it is now, but it took the impact of the gang box and sort of crumpled, and it did hit me, but the hat kept me from getting knocked off and like dying that night. I was doing another thing in a scissor lift for a Keanu Reeves movie, and we were in the middle of nowhere, and my buddy he's like, let me move the scissor lift. You don't put a guy at the top of a scissor lift and move it while he's in it. And it was on like a little bit of an incline. So when he hits reverse, I look down and the front tire totally raises. I'm not exaggerating, this high off the ground. You never heard a man scream like I screamed. I thought I was going to be thrown out of that thing and die, for real. I can't believe that it went up. And then it slowly went back to the ground. And when he heard me screaming, he stopped moving. And I was mad at that guy for years. His name was Billy. I have no idea what happened to Billy. We were really good friends back then. We both had Harleys. Anyway, I'm digressing. I'm in the scissor lift. What's my job? They've strapped a spotlight onto the front of the not the scissor lift, the cherry picker. I'll probably get this confused throughout the night, calling or the story. And then they lift me up. That's it for me. I live here now in the junkyard. And so my job was to stay on Neil. And I'd run spots before for rock and roll bands. Like, man, I forget the name of that band. Anyway, so here's one funny story. We got going pretty good. I'm staying on him. I know that what my job is, and if I don't do it right, some AD, assistant director, is going to come over and get on me. Now I'm making $100 a day, right? So I'm getting paid a lot. I'm kidding. I wasn't. And Neil would like point like he was going to go this way. And then he would go that way. It was like some sort of football thing, fakey move, And then I realized, I think he's messing with me. I think he's doing this on purpose so that you're trying to follow him and you're like, he's going to go that way. And then I thought, why would Neil Young be doing this to me in the middle of his own video that he's paying money for? I'm sure the label's paying for it. But so that was funny. So now we go on and on and on. Ultimately, well, I won't tell you how many hours I was in that thing until we get to the end here. But it was time to eat. So it's probably midnight 30, And so they lower the cherry picker down and somebody puts my lunch up in my little basket. And I'm up in there eating, and Neil Young walked by. That's it. He just walks by the basket. And I'm at head level, right? So my feet are at head level. So about 2 minutes later, the assistant director comes over. And I think I knew that guy. I think we might have worked on something before. And he goes, hey, Neil would like to wear your boots. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, yeah, he wants to wear your boots in the video. And I say, and so I'm starving over here. I'm eating chicken and biscuits. And I every day. And so I said, could I get a, rental fee? And the guy just laughs at me and just says, give me your boots. I take my boots off. He goes away with the boots. And it only took about 40 to 50 seconds to realize I'm standing in this crane with a metal floor made out of metal winding things. It was a torture chamber. I was at this show for 19 hours, running the spot. It just over and over and over. Now we're going to cut to the money shot here. Let me get to it before I cut to it. So I forgot this happened. And my buddy Tommy had a TV show where they went and found like Leonard Skinner's hat, and I said, I have some stuff like that. Like I have a cigarette that Madonna smoked in that Rain video. And I said, and I have cowboy boots from Rockin' in the Free World. And he's like, dude, I think what he said was, mate, are you kidding? And I'm like, no. And then I'm like, is this story real? Am I remembering this right? So it was just a memory from 1989, right? So let me cut. And I really didn't believe it myself. So if you go watch the video, and I'll put a link down below, Neil has one outfit on, but when it cuts to the guitar solo, I guess he went back and changed. And what you see here, if you can, let me zoom in a little bit. You can only see them in like for a few seconds, but those are my boots. So he's wearing my cowboy boots, and there's fringe all over this weird outfit, whoever the heck made this for him. And he's wearing my cowboy boots during the solo of Rockin' in the Free World. And I totally forgot about this whole thing, which makes me wonder, what else have I forgotten about, And so that's what my goal is with my stories. I'm going to try to remember all these little things that were interesting and tell them. The end of the story is 19 hours in, and no one's, I mentally was over. At this point, I didn't care if they paid me. I just, I yelled at someone to bring the thing down, the cherry picker. I got out. I put my boots. The guy, oh, that's what it was. The guy came back with my boots. They were done with my boots. I should have asked for Neil to sign them. Dolly Parton used my Cadillac in a movie, and I did ask her to sign the glove compartment, but that didn't happen either. You know what I do have, though? I do have a Dwight Yoakam boot. I did. After that, I was smart enough to say, to remember that people should sign things, at least if they're not going to pay you for them. So this is, if you watch Dwight back in the 80s, 90s, these, I don't know how many pairs of boots like this he had, but these are some working pair of boots that he wore back in the day. Look at those heels now. Come on. And when I pulled this down to tell the story, I realized it was rattling, and it's full of belt buckles from when I was a kid, like 13, 14. You can see that they've got dust all over them. But I had no idea these were in here. So that's my Dwight Yoakam boot. That's just a bonus track here on this Neil Young story. I did walk the show. I just literally put my boots on and walked out and got in my car and went home. I don't remember if they paid me or not. And it was kind of not cool because Kurt got me that gig. And you don't walk a gig that somebody gets you, but I was over. There was no more left of me. And I did do shows like that more in the future. And I got better at doing things like that. So anyway, that's the Neil Young Rockin' in the Free World. Nothing negative about Neil. He thought the boots were cool. I'm super stoked that happened and that he wore them in the video and that I actually remembered it and, that it's real. It's crazy. All right, y'all. Hit subscribe. Once again, these stories are bubbling up. I'm actually going to call some people and say, is there something I've forgotten here? Because I did work around a lot of interesting folks back then. I have some Motley Crue stories. I have a really good Motley Crue story. So we'll document this. I got to tell the Madonna story about when Madonna tried to take me to her trailer. And then I got to tell the Motley Crue story when the groupies of at the video, or shooting a video for them, they thought I was him because I had long blonde hair. And we'll talk about what happened with that. And there's many more. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm Billy Hale. And bye.